And also another thing I want to understand, Ben, is the tax advantage. That's the extra bonus, cost seg or 1031 sort of whatever blend with the mobile home parks. And that those two things might run in conjunction with one another, but kind of dive in why that versus multifamily 300 units, Grant Cardone in Dallas.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll just start that I love all real estate.
Same.
Yeah, so I don't say that this is better than that.
We got to take them all out, though. We got to take out the competition, Ben.
No.
Got to call my guy, Ray. That's an inside joke on our team. Whenever we have a problem, bad tenant or whatever, we got Ray's the guy we call. So, yeah, we got to take out all those other asset classes because ours is the best.
But I'll frame it in this way, and I'll just break it down to a couple of different components. The first is that there's between 3 to 6 million units in the United States that we're currently short on, meaning that we don't have enough housing in the United States. And now with the current debt cycle that we're going through, where construction debt makes building not very accretive to returns.
Challenging.
Yeah, there you go. Challenging.
Yes.
I think that issue is going to be compounded. So just starting from, the demand is that we need more homes.
100%.
There is a huge affordability crisis in the United States.
Dude, you want to come work at ADU, pals? I mean, you're literally, bro.
This is what I do for a living, right? There's an affordability crisis in the United States.
Sure.
And manufactured housing communities are the most affordable non-subsidized housing, and there's not a close second. And then thirdly, just to differentiate our space from Class A multifamily, like you were talking about with Grant Cardone, it comes down to supply. So I kind of talked about the demand, but then let's talk about the supply. There's only about 40 to 45,000 manufactured housing communities in the entire United States. That supply is going down every year due to redeveloping. They're not building more of this product. I mean, there are some exceptions, like in Texas, you see some supply coming online, but for the most part, that supply is shrinking. And it's because of, just to put it blankly, like NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Cities don't really like it, or municipalities, because it's really a revenue drag on tax dollars, on property taxes. So because they are not, I don't go into it too much, but because they're not subdivided, we pay property taxes on the entire lot. And there's a lot of families and children that live here. They go to the schools. It's not a huge revenue source for the city, so they don't really like them. Plus, people don't love the idea when you're like, oh, I'm going to build a manufactured housing community next to your neighborhood.
Yeah, it doesn't play well.
No. So the supply, there's not a lot of it. So when you have a huge demand driver and then you also have a limited amount of supply, it creates where I think you could find those asymmetric returns, where you could buy a really good deal that's owned by mom and pops, which, more than 50%, probably upwards to 80% are still. You can get really good off-market deals. They're kind of mismanaged. They're not professionally operated. And then that's where you can get that disconnect in value, where we as professional operators can come in and really enhance the community and then create strong returns for our investors, but at the same time do right by the residents.
Yeah, I love that you guys do that. I remember when I came to your guys' office. By the way, your office is amazing. Literally right there in the airport, the airplanes and the whole thing. It's gorgeous. But yeah, when you were talking to me and you showed me actually an OM and you talked about, the enhancements and the amenities you guys aren't just saying that. You guys are going in there. You guys are spending real money to make the community better, to make that experience for your tenants better. And then in the long run, because you're holding the asset, it makes your lives easier when you're managing that property because you have happier tenants, less turnover. They're paying, a little bit of a premium. Obviously, there's going to be an uptick because you have to make money. It's an investment for you and for your investors. But ultimately, you have people that are willing to pay it because there's more value.
Correct. Yeah. And then just to tailor off on my point, the other component is that, I think probably the listeners know this, but the tenants own their homes. So we don't own the home, so there's less repairs and maintenance. So our expense ratios are much lower.
Yeah.
So less risk. And then it's more resilient. So mobile home parks do well when
What if I'm like, my name's John Smith and I want to come live at this new mobile home park you have in Arizona, which is, you guys operate a lot in Arizona.
Yep.
Do you have a way, if I call you, Ben, where do I go to buy a new mobile home?
So on comfortcommunities.com.
Comfortcommunities.com.
Yep. So that is our property management arm. So we're vertically integrated. We have about 45 employees. Comfort Capital is our private equity real estate investment arm. And then Comfort Communities is our entire property management arm. On Comfort Communities, you can see all our communities. You can see all our homes for sale. And it's listed just like any other MLS, listing like for a single family home. And we floor about 100 homes a year. We're a manufactured home dealer as well, meaning that we actually, when we do have a vacant spot or an old home that needs to be pulled. We are a dealer, meaning we can go directly wholesale from the dealership, place a home, brand new home on that space, and then sell that home on site. So that's how we use the dealership function. So that's really advantageous for
it's a good solve for a potential new owner that wants to be in your guys' park.
Yeah, I mean, we just do it all. So
yeah.
And it helps us too from an operation. We have full control over the community.
You're vertically integrated and you have all the boxes checked to solve.
Yeah, correct.
Love that.
And we've been doing it for 15 years. So, it takes 15 years to build a 15-year track record. And so you learn a lot along the way.
100%.
And so I think we're not vertically integrated so we could say that, on a pitch. We're vertically integrated because we have to be vertically integrated because there's not a good third-party management out there as there is in apartments. And then the last thing on apartments versus us, the cyclicality and, of apartments, because you always have this new supply that comes on. So when like right now, there's a 40-year high of new deliveries coming into the market in the apartment space. The apartments have gone on a complete bull run in terms of rent growth. You're starting to see that taper off as net absorption is starting to dip down because there's a lot of new supply. Generally 50% of the rent roll rolls in a given year on a large Class A apartment unit. So you're seeing rent growth dip. But in our space, we're the tortoise, they're the hare. So while, they experience this crazy bull run in terms of rent growth, we're just slowly catching up. And so by the time all these units get absorbed, and then we're still at that 3 to 6 million shortage of units in the entire United States, we'll go on another bull run on rent growth. And we just consistently are able to pace multifamily rents in a way that gives us really good foresight and resiliency on our predictability of return as it relates to top line or revenue or future rent growth. And
how is, without getting too much into the numbers, let's just use a 8% return for a traditional syndication. How do you guys, because when you broke down your spreadsheet and the actual numbers, it was to me a little bit more sophisticated than I was used to. And we don't actually have to get into that too much, but how do you compare if I have $150,000 and I want to deploy it tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look at what I've been fed forever, which is IRR, safety in a 300 unit, rent growth has been tremendous, et cetera, red state, et cetera, versus a comfort capital, which is a different asset class that maybe I'm not as familiar or comfortable with. When you're breaking down return, IRR, or overall investment, you're educating, I can already tell, I'm assuming, your LPs and your investors on the actual return for a dollar versus a percentage number that someone's telling you that you feel is like what that thing is. So can you break down how you compare? Again, you don't have to get into actual percentages because that varies deal by deal, but what does that look like? Well, how does that conversation go?
Yeah, so with our investors, they're generally looking at what's the initial cash on cash. So right now you can get a CD or a money market account could give you a 5%, cash on, 5%,
5.1,
5.2, whatever it is,
just
5% yield. Yeah. But you pay taxes on that, right? And now I want to talk too about taxes in our space, I want to talk a little bit about cost segs and why this space is so, creative advantageous from a tax standpoint. But to your point, we talked to them about cash on cash, what's going to be out of the gates, what are we projecting in future years cash on cash is going to be, and then what's the total return. So that's inclusive of cash on cash and then the appreciation. And we just model it average annual return, which is a very easy arithmetic.
And how does that number normally come out, Ben, to like just a traditional syndication?
Yeah, I mean, AAR is generally, so if someone's saying it's a 12% IRR, it's probably a 14% AAR. It's like roughly like back of the envelope math. They're generally pretty close. We do showcase IRR as well, but IRR just doesn't make sense in our space because we're not a fund. So we do single asset deals, right? Single deal syndications.
Is it 506C or B?
We're a 506B, so we know all of our investors and we
accredited and non-accredited.
Yeah. But
okay.
I'd imagine pretty much all of our investors are accredited, high net worth individuals.
Yeah.
We just don't do any marketing. So we got to know each other through mutual friends, right? That's how you kind of got to know what I do. You won't see if you go on my LinkedIn me posting any deals or anything like that. So it's all word of mouth and, referral based, and you get to know folks, and then they like the story. They know someone that's been an investor for 10 plus years.
I love that so much.
Had a really good experience. And so then
it's the best way, dude.
Yes. And so then,
and for longevity, it's the best. The roots are way deeper.
Exactly. And we also, as much as we like taking on new investors, we like investors that are, partners, good partners, and believe in the asset class, believe in us and what we're doing. And, we've, 15-year tracker, never lost money, never had a capital call. I think our worst returns we've ever done is like 10% average annual return. And we've bought over 35 deals over the last
Guys, that's amazing.
years.
Like, there's a lot of blood out there. There's a lot of capital calls being had every day. It's like the unwritten sort of secret in the market right now that all these people are out there trying to raise capital for deals, and there is a lot of deals going bad. Banks taking back deals. And look, I'm not taking shots at anyone. I'm just telling you this is what's happening. These guys, Ben's telling us they've never lost money, and they're returning the lowest return, 10%. Again, you need to verify all these numbers, etc. But I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't mean that in a way to pitch anything to anyone, but that's just been our experience of just doing. And the thing is like, we're not like the sexy investment, right? We're not like the blow your socks off returns. They're strong returns, but we're trying to gear towards an investor base that's looking to create some defensive ballast within the portfolio and really focus on cash flow and overall total return, and then utilize depreciation, which I wanted to highlight, utilize depreciation to then shelter income, and or if they're a real estate professional, then they could use that, or have other real estate income, can use that excess depreciation to shelter other income.
Yeah, so that was the second part of my question before we digressed and started chasing the white rabbit. So mobile home parks are unique in the sense that on cost seg, depreciation, or as far as a tax shelter, there are additional, can you break that down?
Yeah, at a high, like 30,000 feet up, when you do a cost seg, essentially what it does is somebody comes out, like an engineer, accountants, they come out and they essentially assess what you purchased. And so they'll count fixtures like carpet, whether in our space, carports, streets, all the infrastructure, and they assign a useful life to that.
Yeah.
And in our space, since we don't own any of the homes for the most part, and there's not a lot of vertical construction like there is in like multifamily, most all of it falls with under 15 years and below. And so on, let's just say like a $10 million deal, probably about $7 to $8 million of that is going to fall below 15 years and below on a depreciation schedule on the cost seg. So you get much more upfront depreciation than you would in, let's just say, like apartments, or really.
Is that more? Apartments are more consistent or more backloaded, or not consistent, but broken down the same over the 25 years, versus you guys are able to essentially front load in this asset class that savings?
Yeah, in apartments, most of what you're purchasing is going to be 27 and a half and above, because it's the concrete pillars, it's the physical infrastructure, the vertical infrastructure of what you bought.
Sure.
So while you still get depreciation, if it's broken off of 27 and a half years, you're probably not going to experience all that depreciation during the hold period. And so in our space, it's really simple in the fact that when you buy a manufactured housing community, it has fencing, it has all the infrastructure, it might have a clubhouse, it has a pool, it has all the roads. That's all getting accelerated and depreciated. We don't have any large structures that need to be accounted for within that cost segregation.
So a way that I would just break that down in my mind would be kind of the way a mortgage works. The interest is what you pay up front. So obviously this is not interest, right? But to the mortgage company, when you have a 30-year note, the first 10 or 15 years, you're just paying interest, right? But they're front loading that, let's call it $1 million note, and you're paying interest first, where that's what you're doing in this sense as well. Instead of paying, essentially getting a 30-year note and being like, you're going to pay a part interest and part principal every month, the same, which we would use an apartment complex for this, right? That asset class. You're essentially saying, no, instead of principal and interest, the same over 30 years, we're going to let you start paying against the principal. This is not the best analogy, Ben, but I'm already here, okay? So all I'm saying is this: the asset class, as far as mobile home parks, you basically are getting accelerated depreciation, accelerated tax savings up front while you hold the asset
Correct.
to be able to capture them.
Correct.
I did better on the second try.
You did.
I did better.
Your latter explanation, you lost me, but no, then the second try was good. So I mean, it's as simple as this. You know, a $10 million asset, if it was an apartment complex, about 20 to 30% of that is going to fall within 15 years and below from a depreciation schedule. In our space, it gets upward to 70, 80%. So that's all you really have to think about.
Sweet. Okay, moving on. We never did the focus. What you do for fun?
I have a 9-month-old, and so for fun now looks a lot different than before that. So we just really go out to dinner, spend time with her, go to the beach. We're pretty simple people.